I want to talk about my relationship with April. For starters, I want to clear up some common misconceptions that I've seen all over the comments that I'm just a bum and I'm using her, manipulating her for a place to stay, and I'm not paying rent, and she's my sugar mama. And none of that is true. I went out there with $3,500. And the whole rent situation is kind of scuffy because we were talking a little bit before I went out there, and I did agree that I would pay rent if it was something that I seen as a longer term living. But I remember like 2 weeks into me staying there, she was already asking me for rent money. You know, be like, what are we gonna do about rent this month since you're staying here? And I thought, well, I thought I had time to like figure it out. Like, I've only been here like a week or two. I remember one of the first things that we fought about was I was trying to get her to work out and quit smoking. And she was saying how I didn't accept her for who she was and I didn't love her and she just wants to be accepted for who she is and she doesn't need to change and all this. And I tried to explain many times it's just I want her to do these things with me and whatnot. And it never seemed like she understood that. It seemed more like I was just attacking her and judging her, which again brings me to something else that we fought over a lot is my dissociating. She would claim that I'm dissociating because of something she did, or not even something she did, that I would take it out on her. But in my eyes, lack thereof, take it out on her. Because if anyone knows what dissociating is, you're sitting there like this. And I remember so many times that she would get mad at me for doing that, and I tried to explain to her many times that I'm sorry beforehand that I can't control always when I'm gonna dissociate or not. I can't, sometimes it just happens and it has nothing to do with you. But I remember so many times me sitting here just like this and just hearing, we're not fucking doing this again. You're not making me out to be the bad guy now, and you're not gonna lay down and play the victim. I remember her yelling at me while I'm sitting there doing that. I remember she would always say, enjoy sleeping in till whenever you want while I go work all day. And I remember a couple times I snapped back at her with, why are you making it seem like I'm just a bum? And she's like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But she would sure say it a lot, that I get to sleep in whatever I want and do whatever I want all day. And she's right. She's right, but she worded it in a way that made it seem like I do nothing all day and I'm not contributing nothing. I remember about a month in, she started saying things like, just accept it, you don't like me at all, and stuff. And it was after all the smoking and working out fiasco. I remember thinking to myself, this is why I'm starting to not like you. And I didn't tell her that. I did like her. When we were talking before I went out there, I liked her. And like the first week or two, I liked her. But then after all the, you don't really like me, or so selfish, or like calling me a bitch, or telling me to get the fuck out, or her life was better without me, those are all things that she said. And I tried to explain to her many times, like, we both, like, I understand that it's a defense mechanism, So whatever she can say to me, I know it's worse on her end for whatever the fuck she's dealing with. A few days ago, I remember messaging her because I've been in contact with her. I've been trying to remain friends with her because, at the end of the day, I don't see her as a bad person. I see her with a kind heart, but she's just fucking broken. Like a lot of people. I'm no better myself. But I messaged her and I told her that I would want to remain friends with her, and I still plan on going back there, just to like live in the area or something, so I do think the area is nice, we could hang out and whatnot. And she doesn't message me the rest of the day. I'm like, that's weird. And then I wake up the next morning, there's nothing, no text. Usually she's just like, I don't know. Usually she's more talkative than that. So I go throughout the entire day and I call her. I'm like, hey, what's going on? You know, I messaged you that last night. She's like, yep. And basically how it went is she basically blamed me for the entire relationship. She said, you didn't treat me very well at all. This whole thing is your fault. You just came into my life and fucked it up for a couple months and then left. And she was saying that what I was telling her wasn't the truth and that she didn't believe me when I told her that I miss Gnarls and I miss the area and I miss hanging out with her. You know, all those things are true. But she was telling me that they weren't true, you know. Like I said, I don't think she's a bad person. I really don't. But she was sitting there saying that I lie in my videos and I'm manipulative and I'm emotionally abusive. And I'm just sitting here trying to take all this in because I can remember a relationship that I had before her. And I was talking to her and I was like, was I like this with you? Was I like this bad? And she goes, no. And I'm sitting here thinking, am I this bad? You know, it kind of makes you question things. But I do want to touch on the fact that she said that I was lying, and I know what she's talking about. So I made a video, the road trip video, and I had said that she basically stole my shit and locked the door and whatnot. And it's not the entire truth. And you guys got to understand that when I recorded that video, I didn't have any texts from her or anything, because she was texting me after like 200 miles on the road that my stuff was there, right? So the whole story is she was kicking me out, right, in the morning. And I remember trying to make coffee, and she stopped the coffee maker. I tried to make the coffee again. I'm like, why can't I have coffee? And she's like, it's my coffee maker. And I'm like, it's my coffee. You know, I bought the coffee. You know, like if we're going to play this petty game, my coffee maker, it's my coffee. Let's take it with me then. But I didn't. She's like throwing my shit out in the living room. And I'm slowly trying to gather all my shit. And I remember she gave me this like tiny bin, whatever, to put my shit in at one point. And I start putting my shit in that bin. And she's like, that's my bin. And so I dump it out and I give her her bin back. And I start slowly packing my shit up again. The entire time she's following me around the house, making sure I'm not like stealing something or whatever. And I look down and I notice that both the cat food bowls are empty. And I go into the kitchen to grab the cat food and I feed the cats, and she says, you don't have to take care of my cats. They're my cat, you don't have to take care of them. And I was like, I was just feeding them because their bowls were empty. I remember she took one of my cigarettes and I said, and now you're taking my cigarettes. You know, so I assumed that she was out of cigarettes. You know, because that goes into a little bit later in the story. Basically, a little bit of time goes by and I go out to bring the first load of shit into my car. And she throws the rest of my shit that was sitting in the living room out and she locks the door. I didn't get a chance to still look around. I was still looking around, making sure I had everything. And she locks the door and she leaves to go get cigarettes. And so I'm sitting there bringing my shit back and forth. I didn't know where the fuck she went. I thought she just locked the door and left. And then when I'm out of my car, she's sitting there trying to like give me a hug, and I basically push her away. And I get in my car and I see her like flipping me off as I'm driving away, you know? So technically, she didn't steal my stuff. However, she also didn't even give me the chance to grab all my shit before I left. And she wouldn't even let me have coffee. Like, the amount of pettiness that I had seen was disgusting. And you could say, but not only that, she also asked me for rent money. And I know she brings that up a lot now. Well, not so much now, but she brought it up after I was already here. And she said, you didn't even give me the rent money. And I'm sitting here thinking, you're kicking me out. You won't even let me have coffee. You locked me out. And you sit here and have the audacity to ask me for rent money. And I'll tell you straight up, I looked her in the eyes and I told her, good luck. And she told me she's going to call the cops and tell her that I have a gun in my car. And she actually did that before too. She mentioned that before. And then she'd come back like the next day or the next 2 days and she'd be like, you got to understand that it's just my defense mechanism. I just needed you out and I just need my own space. And see, I understand that. I understand all the defense mechanisms and all that. But I tried to tell her how you treat people is not good, and all she says, that's not me. It's not me. I think the biggest part of the relationship is we tried to show ourselves to each other, and both of us are too stubborn to see it. Or maybe it was just coming from the wrong person. But you know, at the end of the day, how I see it, she has a loving heart and she's broken. Very broken. Whether she wants to admit it to herself or not, she has a lot of insecurities. And that's how I see it. You know, part of me this past week was kind of scared to make a video about all this because I don't know if she'll watch it or get offended at what I'm gonna say or whatever. And you know, I guess part of me was scared that my stuff is there and if I make a video that she doesn't like, she's just gonna pawn my shit for rent money or something. Do I think she's the type of person to do that? I have no idea, in all honesty. I try to see the good in everybody. The relationship didn't work out. In my opinion, the disassociating clashed with the fact that she needed me to be attentive and not disassociating. So, I mean, I guess technically it's my fault that I disassociate, but I don't see that as a problem. I mean, I do see it as a problem, but to say all that shit to me, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right, you know? Especially after everything that I did for her. Like, her car was broken for a year, and if I didn't come there and give her rent money, her car would probably still be broken right now. You know, the only way she got to work is through like a car that the work gives her, but her car was broken. The only thing that she had in her fridge was a pack of hot dogs when I fucking got there. And to me, you can think of it as, oh, you wasted all this money, you wasted all this time, whatever. I did have a good time with her while I was there. Yeah, we fought a lot. But I understood her on a deeper level, probably than most people ever knew, you know. And $3,500 for 2 months, I guess that's not horrible, you know. My parents are going on a vacation somewhere, they're spending probably that, and they're only going to be gone for a week. But at the end of the day, it's not about the money, it's about the experience that you have in life, and life teaches you lessons. You know, I remember April saying all the time how she was great the way she is and she doesn't need to change. And I think that's a lie. Not just for her, but for everybody. Life is always a lesson. Every day. Every day is a lesson. And you repeat the lessons until it's learned, and you live your life. And the lessons will not stop being learned. I don't regret anything. I don't regret going out there and trying to care for her. And I'm not trying to make her out to be a bad person. You know, we fought a lot, and that's the truth of it. But that doesn't take away from all the good times that I shared with her. You know. Oh, there once was a hero named Ragnar the Red who came riding to Whiterun from over Erikstead. The braggart did swagger and brandish his blade, and he told of both battles and gold he had made.